Hello everybody, welcome to the channel Talking with J Spring. On today's video, I'm giving you my official Rambo franchise ranking from the worst to the best. Don't forget to let me know yours in the comment section down below from 5 to 1 or 1 to 5. I'd love to see your rankings of the franchise. Of course, we're going to have differences in where we put what film in what place. That's the whole fun of it. This is the fun of talking about movies, which is what this channel offers. I'd love to hear your opinions on it, of course, in the comments. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. What I add, guys, is all these movies are absolutely awesome in their own way. I don't dislike any of these movies. They've all got entertainment value, and this is all just preference. But coming in... First Blood Part 2. I felt this movie had a great job of doing James Cameron justice in the writing of this movie. I think that was a great opportunity for him, as well as being nominated for an Oscar, as well as being the second movie which was biggest in its year in 1985. This movie done quite well for its year, of course, which is good. As well as the movie in general really felt good for Rambo because he elevated to a whole new level as a character. He was more confident, more bigger as well, and more out there. He was just killing tons of people in the open, being that superhero soldier which we're sort of used to nowadays. As well as Stallone in this movie, of course, was great, and so was Krenner as Troutman. I really did enjoy him in this movie. Shown a lot more in this movie than First Blood, but this movie just really hasn't aged well for me. From seeing it nowadays, from when I first saw it many years ago, it just hasn't aged well. The worst one out of all of them, in my opinion, in terms of aging, and the emotional core of the movie, I felt it was just ripped out of the movie. Gone for so much action, no focus on character build up or story build, and that's what I'm quite a fan of. So this movie for me got a 7 out of 10 at number 5. 3. This one only inches Rambo Part 2 because the productions level took a obviously massive upstep from Part 2. Really, it looks so much better. Part 2 didn't look good in its terms of production, and not only that, the movie, once it kicks in, it just don't stop. Once the action starts, it's just like a train, and it's got no brakes. It's just not stopping for nobody, and that's how it feels with this movie. The action after action after action, which is such fun and enjoyment, and I really enjoyed the use of Troutman in this, in the story as well as involved in the action. He's a character which I enjoyed through the Rambo franchise, as well as like to see the relationship between him and Rambo, which was really good, as well as obviously this had the biggest action sequences from the first 3 movies. They really went all out in this movie, which was quite enjoyable as well. But what made this movie 4th place on my list is for the fact that the script was really bad in its time. It felt very computerized, like they just typed it up or wrote it up and told them to just read off of it, and it just felt like that, and it just felt very unprofessional, and there was just so many catchphrases for Rambo. He just sort of felt like a catchphrase superhero, and I just didn't like that part of the movie. As well as the humor added into this movie, I just didn't really land for me, as well as the villains in the movie. I just didn't feel like they were memorable enough. They didn't really do much, to be honest, that I can actually think of back right now, even though I watched the movie a couple of days ago. Really, still, this movie is still fun, enjoyable, at 4th place with a 7 out of 10. All in this movie for you guys, of course, I felt like the evolution of the character Rambo was really the best shown in this movie. We obviously remember back to First Blood, and also this movie does a good job with showing you the flashbacks and on going back onto how he looked, who he was as a person and stuff, and seeing how he is now. So the character arc was shown really well in this movie, and I really did enjoy that. As well as the rated R violence in this was absolutely epic, really brutal, and the tone of the movie as well. I think it was a mixed bag of emotions. Obviously, you got your fun action-packed bits where you're on the edge of your seat proper cheering for Rambo, but you've also got the emotional side to the story, which really makes it a balanced story of mixed emotions, which is quite fun as well. And not only that, the fact that it had more characters involved in it compared to the first 3 movies, which was not just thrown in there for the sake of dying or being a part of John Rambo's kill. There were actually important characters, a family or friends or even villains in the movie that had purpose. And not only there's a character who's really tested with the villains in this movie, which was quite enjoyable because he's normally this superhero guy that gets out of everything. He was tested emotionally, physically, because of his age as well in this movie, and he just looked so vulnerable, which was something different and unique which we haven't seen. So that was quite fun about this movie as well. Of course, the technical side of the movie was top notch, being its 2019, but what really made this movie third place for me is the writing and the directing in the movie. I think it just really fell flat for me, really unprofessional in what they did with this movie. The way it's been obviously compared to other movies is where you can actually hear the examples of how it fell flat. Why would you compare it to the likes of Home Alone or Taken? That just really is unprofessional for me. As to do a family, emotional, dramatic story, which was all fun and good. They did that, and you did feel a chemistry and relationship between Rambo and this family and his friends, but they really didn't execute it well enough for me. I would have loved to have felt a little bit more in there to really have some emotional attachment to more to the characters really that were involved as the side characters. And the main issue for me is that I came out the cinema not feeling like this was a Rambo movie. It felt like a action-packed revenge movie with Stallone in it, really, which is sort of sucks in a way. Maybe because my expectations were too high, but really still, guys, this is still a very enjoyable movie, a must-watch for all Rambo lovers, of course, and this got a 7.5 out of 10. Movie of the franchise. In my opinion, this is the most underrated movie out of the Rambo franchise and is not too far off a first spot. I really think this technically is awesome, really even better than Last Blood, even though Last Blood has only just come out. I really just love what they did with this movie. The realism in the story, the action-packed stuff really mixed well and balanced well throughout the movie, and the fact that Stallone wrote, performed and actually directed this movie just deserves a massive amount of praise. This was epic because it chucked out all of these superhero stuff, the aura around the Rambo character. Really, we've got to see Rambo like he was in First Blood, more grounded, emotional, with hardships and grief, even with that PTSD side, which really is cool. I do like that side because the character arc is somewhat important with the story. And obviously we still get the badass side of Rambo. He gets to kill people with all that rated R kills and action, which is superb throughout the movie. And one thing I also want to say is the color grading, the color correction in this movie just looks amazing. It really does. It suits the movie. Another mixture of characters which were introduced into this, which I actually generally cared about and had a part to play in the story. Beautiful ending to this movie as well, but where this movie knocks down to second place in my list is where it just sometimes can get too brutal and dark. Some of the stuff you see in here is horrific. The imagery, especially with the use of kids and women in this, it can be off-putting to some people, but the script in this modern day and age should be a lot better as well with this movie, as well as the main point for many people, the pacing. The pacing and the tone in this movie was a bit in and out of the movie, because the pacing one bit it was so slow and then suddenly just kicks into a whole new pace and suddenly it ends. It just feels like something was missing or taken out. But really, guys, this movie is amazing, which really is great and still holds up today, of course, with a 7.8 out of 10. Any doubt, this movie thoroughly deserves its spot at number 1. It shines over all the other movies. Stallone may not look his best like he did in Rambo 3. He may not have a bunch of characters which we care about like in 2008 or Last Blood. But what this movie offers is a perfectly rounded action adventure thriller movie. What they're supposed to be giving, and this one gives that. It has Stallone, of course, one of his best performances, especially as a character of Rambo, which is so unique but relatable, suffering with PTSD, and obviously people with suffering that illness, or people who know people suffering that, or just people who care about this illness in general. This can be a relatable character which you really connect with, which is somewhat used more in this movie than obviously in all the others, which I did enjoy. Well, mixed with that, you have Jerry Goldsmith's score, which was the first time we'd heard it, and it still holds up today. It is super epic. Back to this movie is some of the best stuff I've seen in movie history. The relationship between Troutman and Rambo is something I've always felt was special, and in this movie and in part 2 I felt that they should have used a lot more of. Overtry with its catchphrases, they actually come natural in this movie and they don't just feel forced on you. This movie came out in 1982 and still holds up today, more so than First Blood Part 2 and Rambo 3 is incredible. And this movie is so compelling and interesting, as well as the pacing of the movie. I felt it was perfect for this movie, as well as the action. Of course, you're going to get action in Rambo movies, which was great throughout the movie. And again, as well, this action wasn't as brutal as, say, for 2008 or even Last Blood. This movie may not be as good as the new movies, but again it's still a good standard, as well as it does have some faults though. Humour again is an issue for me. I really do find some of the humour in most Rambo movies just really fall flat. I don't find it funny, especially in the earlier ones, because I feel like it's obviously jokes for that time. I don't think they still sort of hold up today, but really isn't a massive problem. The limitations of some of the side characters though, in what telling their backstory, find out a bit more about them. I would love to have seen maybe a bit more about the cops, maybe about some of the side characters, or even about Rambo in general. We got some flashbacks, of course, of Rambo, but maybe have a scene of Rambo talking to a random person, getting emotional, telling this story of his past, and having flashbacks of this story. I felt that would have been a lot more beneficial for the movie to really relate to the character even more. I felt they could have just done a lot more with the characters in this movie than they did. Doesn't mean they've done a bad job though, of course, but the main thing for me is obviously the unrealism in the movie. You get a ton of unrealistic stuff, but for its time in 1982 you can sort of sweep that to the side, whereas in part 2 and obviously Rambo 3 there's a ton more unrealistic stuff you could list, of course. But overall, as I've mentioned, these are nitpicky things. You can obviously sweep them to the side and enjoy this movie for what it is, which is a classic, of course. I've watched this many times and will continue to do so throughout my life because it's such a great movie. I gave this an 8 out of 10, and some people would probably even rate it higher. I was actually going to give it an 8.5 when I first reviewed it, but I think an 8 out of 10 really signifies what this movie is about. That is my official Rambo franchise ranking from worst to best. Let me know your rankings in the comment section down below, of course. But also down there, let me know, did you love all these movies? Did you hate them? Which ones you prefer to others? What do you think of the franchise as a whole? Has it been great all the way through? I'd love to hear your thoughts on Rambo as a character or as a franchise in general down below in that comment section. Let's get into a friendly discussion, of course. But if you want to check out the rest of the journey to Rambo Last Blood, I reviewed from Rambo First Blood all the way up to the newest one, as well as done this ranking. It'll all be in the card above my head, links in the description, and an annotation at the end of the video, which you guys can check out and hopefully enjoy, of course. It's been a fun journey. Hope you guys have enjoyed it, but we are not finishing there. We've got so much more coming up on the channel, more reviews, more rankings like this one, top 10s, tier lists, and so much more, as well as trailer reactions. Please do stay tuned on the channel. I'd be very, very grateful if you could subscribe. We're really on the road to 500 subscribers right now. That is my next aim by Christmas. I'll be very grateful if you can join me on this journey. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. I've been me, you've been you. I'll see you next time, guys, on Talking with Jay Springett.